This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
I know,
bro. Yeah, I turned it.
And well, I'm live now, but Chloe tried to tell me she was using that. I'm like, bro, that literally was hot enough to melt somebody's skin off.
Yeah, bro.
Listen, I almost died. I almost died.
No, past C. They literally have a warning on the thing.
I tried to get into the tub. And literally, like all of my athletics, I almost bust my head in there. Anyway, we on the live stream. Get out of here, bro. Go through.
Yeah, it was on very high. I turned it down.
I know.
I turned it down to 8.
All right. Peace to the family. Peace to the family. I've been around the world. I've been around the world. Oh my goodness. I've been around the world today. Out there putting my intellectual dukes up. But it always feels good to come home. And I was not letting today go out without getting day 3 in. Right? Because we got to get the week 10. And I'm trying to get a few more of these in. Before we start the other classes, because we're going to start to have multiple classes throughout the week. And what I mean by that is we're going to have, we already have multiple classes throughout the week, but I'm saying we're going to have different subjects. So that means we might be in week 10 with this class, and we might have orientation on protein composition, or we might be in week 2 of this one, or we might be in week 3 of this one. So we're going to try to build it up so that way we have a schedule. Maybe not a schedule. Let me stop trying to, not necessarily a schedule, but we have variety, right? So we can have a wide variety of conversations, but at the same time, still be building our curriculum, still be building up our school and what we got going on over on Patreon, right? Over on Patreon. So remember, YouTube is not the final resting place. We're building these classes up. We're building the material up. And it's going to happen quickly. It might seem like it's not, but it's going to happen quickly. Just like the books. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all remember when I was having conversations like this about the very first book on Amazon. Like, it's our first book on Amazon. I can't wait till I get to 10. I can't wait till I get to 50. I can't wait till I get to 100. You know what I'm saying? And so, it seemed like so now we're shifting gears towards building up these curriculums, Yeah, I seen you over there for a hot minute over there with the craziness. Yes, listen. Got to do it sometime. You got to do it sometime. We got to get out there and be able to share the material in hostile environments. And we got to be able to be consistent, even keeled, and try to communicate our message effectively. You know what I'm saying? Try to communicate our message effectively. Because as we spread the message to what we're doing, it's not going to always be, a comfortable environment. But we are going to start having, like I said, some variety. So, we did the first Bible study panel this Sunday. I have something else set up with a brother. He has a class already with maybe 20 or 30 people in it. And we're going to see if we can bring that, to the platform, maybe on Saturday or Sunday as well. So we can have, some more different conversations where we get to take what we're doing in our organized classes and, spread them out into some different spaces. You know what I'm saying? So we'll have our organized classes, and then we'll try to fill up maybe Saturday and Sunday with more panel discussions where we open up the floor and try to bring some folks in. And you guys can invite people as well. You can invite people as well. Paul bring our guest in that we just had on Sunday. So you guys could do the same thing. He hit me up. He was like, yo, Doc, want to bring my cousin through? We had a great convo. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want people to think that also, like, if you bring friends or family onto the platform, it's going to be a combative setting. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't have to be a combative setting. You know what I'm saying? When people are building, it's love. It doesn't have to be, fighting to share ideas. That's cool. It's entertaining, but it has a space. You know what I'm saying? Here, what I would prefer to do is share, so we can exchange ideas more so. All right. But anyway, let's get our books out. Right? Let's get our books out. It's week 9, day 3. Right? Week 9, day 3. Let me see what I want to highlight. What do we need to talk about? You know what I'm saying? What's the big idea? What do we need to talk about? Maybe we need to talk about leptin and estrogen and visceral fat. Maybe we talk about aquaporins today. Do we talk about aquaporins maybe? We got aquaporins potentially on the menu. We got microtubules potentially on the menu, right? On page 312, where it says glycation alters proteins, including tau and tubulin in neurons, right? We might discuss neurons. I've been getting some questions about that. like dementia. We've been having some dementia questions pop up lately. Because we had the conversation on medicine with Alzheimer's or, being labeled as, type 3 diabetes. And so that's a part of the conversation I didn't even think of on Tuesday night. I didn't even think of that on Tuesday night. Maybe we try to talk about all of them. Maybe we try to get it all in. Right? Maybe we try to go crazy. Okay. So I guess we got to start with fat. All right. Even though I feel like we've discussed it already, I feel like we discussed how inflammation cycles around and becomes fat. Right? I think we discussed kind of that loop already. How inflammation inflammation cortisol estrogen increase fat. And these two guys create a nasty little loop of their own, right? So fat cells produce estrogen. The larger the fat cells, the more fatty tissue you have, the more estrogen you produce. The more estrogen you produce, the more cortisol you're going to produce. The more cortisol, the more estrogen. The more estrogen, the more cortisol. The more cortisol, the more estrogen. The more estrogen, the more cortisol. What is the input? Stress, right? I'll come over here so hopefully we can see that. Stress is the input. So your job, your children, in fact, let me pull something up for y'all real quick. Let's take a look at this because I don't see any real discussion around this. And I feel like sometimes somebody's watching me. I just feel like there needs to be a conversation. Okay. So here's another little nasty loop. And I thought about it the other day when we were talking, and the brother asked me, or the sister, excuse me, I don't want to get that wrong. But we got a question from the chat. On the water fast, right? We got a question from the chat on the water fast. This is something that is crucial. This is something that we have running around in the background, wreaking havoc. We have this in the background wreaking havoc, right? As stress levels go up, homocysteine eats through your B vitamins. So, you know that feeling that you get, like in your stomach? You know what I'm saying? Like you have one of them arguments with your husband, your baby father, or your boyfriend, or, your baby moms, your girlfriend, your wife, you're having that heated argument. Well, after you have that heated argument, you need to go get you some B vitamins. You need to get you some B vitamins because the stress of that argument has created a very nasty cascade of biochemical reactions that's going to go on in your body. And so, as we talked about how you need B1 to break down carbs, B2 and B3 to transport the metabolites, and, cytochrome or complex 1 and complex 2, and, B6 and B7, and, you're going to develop silent, probably temporary, right? Probably temporary, because if you don't address it, like say, for instance, you take a B vitamin in the morning, or you eat a bunch of fruit in the morning to get your day started. You get your B vitamins one way or the other. Midway through the afternoon, something crazy happens at work. Midway through the afternoon, something crazy happens in your school. Something crazy happens in your relationship. Well, amongst other changes that's going on, because you just have the feelings, right? And this is where it becomes important. We have the book. The movement book. I think it's in this. Hold on, I'm flashing this book on the screen. I think it's this book. Okay, yes. Hold on. Is it this book? Hold on, yeah. Okay, yes. It's definitely this book. Okay, in the movement book, right? In the movement book, there's a few pages and a few spots, a few sections where we talk about the biochemistry associated with feelings, right? It's good to begin to get familiar with that, because your feelings do represent biochemistry. Good, bad, or indifferent. Good, bad, or indifferent. You want to be able to learn what is associated with what, so that way you could take control of it. Right? You want to be able to take control of it. So when stress happens, you want to know that you could go, pop. So like when I worked at Verizon, I literally always kept high quality B vitamins in my locker. I kept high quality B vitamins in my car. I kept high quality B vitamins in my book bag. Right? Different stores got different setups. You know what I'm saying? Some stores we had little cubbies in the back where you could put your personal stuff. some places that's not it. You got to have your car or whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying is I kept them on deck. Anything happened, I didn't run out to go pop me some Tylenol. I didn't run out to go pop some aspirin. I went out to go pop me some B complex. Right? I went out to go pop me some B complex for stress. Right? Not aspirin. Right? Not a blood thinner. Not a blood thinner. Right? Because once you start to releasing inflammatory hormones, once you start to releasing cortisol, which pulls more, which a lot of times boosts the blood sugar, right? The last thing you want to do is thin out the blood, right? The last thing you want to do is thin out the blood in that space, right? You want water. You actually want more blood volume. Right? You want more blood volume. It might seem like kind of counterintuitive, like the more blood volume, maybe you put more pressure on your heart, but that's not how it goes. The more blood volume, you actually take pressure off the heart. The more blood volume, the more pressure you take off the heart. The less hydrated you are, the more dehydrated you are, the more you put pressure on the heart, the more you put pressure on the vessels. So you don't want to necessarily have blood thinners along with stress hormones and, IL-1, IL-6, tumor necrosis factor, and all kinds of other foolishness. Right? So being able to figure out what's going on, right? And then we have the new field. It's a new medical field. We kind of touch on it and open up the conversation in this book. Psychoneuroimmunology. Psychoneuroimmunology, right? Psychoneuroimmunology, right? But just to open the door to the conversation, it's more important to figure out how feelings translates to chemistry. How feelings translates to chemistry. And the basic place to start is stress, because that's what we're all trying to figure out. How to manage stress, how to manage stress, how to manage stress. Exercise is a great way to manage stress. But we want to make sure that we have the nutrients. We want to make sure that we have the vitamins. We want to make sure that we have the things that we need to fuel our body's movement. Right? That is important. I don't even know at the time, because I'd be balling on a budget. So I think when I was at Verizon, I think the newest thing that was out at the time was like these big brown nasty tablets. they were like whole food. That was the thing, what I'm saying? Because vitamins have went through, phases. So there's a point where, it was all about having chelated vitamins and, whatever. But I think at that time, and I try to stay current and experiment as much as possible with, whatever's out, so I can know what I'm talking about when I speak on it. But yeah, I think whole food vitamins, where it was basically like, fruit, vegetable concentrates. You know what I'm saying? So I would just keep those on deck. You know what I'm saying? And, make sure a high amount of whatever, 12,000 B12, and, all those crazy numbers that you see on the back. Those become important. Those become important, especially as your life gets fuller. right? Because some of us, you got to go to work, then you got to wrestle with the baby or the daycare or the whatever, and then you still got to try to manage your relationship on top of that, right? So you have to wear a bunch of different hats, and all of those different hats have some degree of stress, including the gym, including working out, including exercise. That is a voluntary stress that you put on your body. That's a voluntary stress that you put on your body, right? So that's why we had the whole hormesis, the whole focus on hormesis, right? Hormesis is about building your body through incremental levels of stress, right? And it's not anything super, or special or unique. It's just a way of understanding what you already are doing, right? If you already exercise, you already are doing hormesis training. You just may not understand that you're doing hormesis training. So because you don't understand that this is stress that you're putting on the body, you may only be thinking of, oh, well, I'm exercising, so I need, branch chain amino acids, I need creatine, I need what else? Nitric oxide, here's my stack. My stack is creatine, protein, and NO, you know what I'm saying? And that's not it. You still have to make sure you hit, your bases, right? You still have to make sure you hit your bases, which is water soluble vitamins. And then you still need to make sure that you focus on things like selenium, right? Because selenium is, so we're still learning about selenium. We're still learning about selenium. I remember back in like Dr. Africa's time, everybody was saying you need selenium for your melanin, right? This is the old school. You need selenium for your melanin. And when I was coming up, I was learning that from, they're like, yeah, eumelanin, you need selenium, pheomelanin, you need sulfur, right? So there's a point in my learning progression where, okay, selenium and sulfur, boom, right? Then they started to change the information. Oh, no. Sulfur is bad for you. You just need to get the selenium in for your eumelanin. I'm like, okay. Then as I started to progress past my teachers and do my own further research, I'm like, no, okay, both of these are incorrect. Both of these are incorrect. I don't need sulfur for pheomelanin because the sulfur that our body uses to make pheomelanin is a byproduct of other things. So you never actually need to worry about getting sulfur in for pheomelanin. Your body's going to recycle, cysteine or glutathione, and that's where you're going to get your pheomelanin production. Selenium, on the other hand, wasn't necessarily as important as copper, right? It wasn't necessarily as important as copper is for eumelanin, right? For eumelanin, you need to make sure that you're getting tyrosine and you're getting copper in because the enzymes, it's going to be copper enzymes that's going to do the job. Why? Because if we go to the periodic table, copper is top 3 on electrical conductivity. So that directly translates to the enzymes that produce your eumelanin, right? But selenium wound up being it. So here's the bridge. Melanin was never, it's a lot of quiet around the melanin system, right? So one of the things we explored was not melanin per se, but melanocytes, right? Melanocytes in the immune system, right? And so we find out that melanocytes produce high amounts of catalase, which breaks down hydrogen peroxide. We find out that melanocytes regulate the Langerhans cells and killer T cells and all of these other different cells. So we wind up finding out all of these different things. And so melanocytes play a big role in the immune system. There are even pigmented white blood cells, which is a whole nother, but because melanocytes play such a big role in the immune system, there's a link because selenium is a part of the NRF2 response. So this is how I begin to figure out this NRF2 thing, right? Because there's a NRF2 response. So NRF2 sits inside the cell, right? You got to keep one molecule, NRF2. Anyway, I'm paraphrasing. When toxins get in the cell and you have too many, the NRF2 alarms the nucleus in the cell, and the nucleus sends a message to start assembling all of the peptides and the antioxidants and the enzymes, like all of your body's defense mechanisms. Those defense mechanisms are all primarily driven by selenium. That's why selenium can single-handedly raise your immune system by itself. This is why they did the studies on, selenium and saw how impactful it was against particular types of cancer and all of these different things. It's because of what selenium turns into. And so as research continued to go on, now there's a variety of proteins that are selenium-based proteins, right? The same way we have cysteine, right? We have selenium, and both of them are in the same periodic table line as oxygen. So both sulfur and selenium play a role in redox, which is the exchange of electrons or being able to squash free radicals and, interleukins and IL, the three ruffians, IL-6, IL-1, and tumor necrosis factor. Those are the three ruffians. Anywhere they show up together, it's going to be a problem. You see what I'm saying? So selenium plays a key role in that. Sulfur plays a key role in that. And that's why when you look at the periodic table, you have them all three in a row, because they all three have some of that. That's a family line. That's a family line. So they all participate in the movement and exchange of electrons, right? Now, these are the things that you need to know when you're dealing with your day-to-day life, right? These are the things you need to know. So when I'm on side channel arguing for 5 hours, right? But I know we got a class still after, right? I got to make sure that from the time I cut that video, I go get refreshed real quick, get me some nutrition in. You know what I'm saying? Get me some nutrition in, get me a drink together, load it up with some, cherry syrup and some blue magic and some, put me a few littles in there. Zoop, zoop, zoop. Then I'll be ready to go. Right? Then I'll be ready to go. Right? So yes, Brazil nuts is at the GOAT level when it comes to selenium, but remember, Brazil nuts are radioactive. What? Brazil nuts are radioactive. Yeah, so that's why there's always a limit on Brazil nuts. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, Brazil nuts are good for you. Brazil nuts lower cholesterol. Brazil nuts amazing. But don't take too many Brazil nuts, because, you know what I'm saying? So you got to, tranquilo, papi. You got to take it easy with the Brazil nuts. We got to take it easy. Let's go with the super chat. Let's go with the super chat. Definitely appreciate and love you for the super chat. Yeah, 10 Brazil nuts a month. 10 Brazil nuts a month. You all right? 10 Brazil nuts a month. You good money. You know what I'm saying? You good money. But some people be throwing 15 Brazil nuts in their smoothie. Right? We got to be careful with the more is better. Like a little bit is good, so more is better. That is not always, accurate. You know what I'm saying? It is not always accurate. So again, we gotta watch for this combination. We gotta watch for this combination. And yes, exercise can change your neurochemistry. Right? We have a whole book. We actually have two books. We have two books on it. We actually have one book. Bam. Primarily about the neurochemistry aspect. Melanin versus Diabetes Research Book number 2. Right? This book right here primarily goes into exercise and neurochemistry. Then we have, what is that? Then we have the Declaration of Independence. Then we have the Declaration of Independence, which kind of goes in a different direction. That's how to use exercise to control energy metabolism and genetic expression. Genetic expression. That's why I say Declaration of Independence. Because when you commit to yourself to start to move, calculated movement, exercise consistently, you are taking your independence. Because every day, what we do and what we eat builds our body. Every day, what we do and what we eat controls our neurochemistry. Every day. There's a reason why, movies have been perfected. Movies have been perfected, and there's a small window of what should be served at movies, right? The food at a movie theater should be very sugary. Very sugary, right? We want to increase the dopamine flow. We want to increase the dream state. We want to increase your believability. We want to make the movie experience as realistic as possible, right? Sugar helps to do that, right? You're high, right? They want to get you high. They want you doped up in the movie theater, right? They want you doped up in the movie theater so that in that, 90 minutes, you can have the most euphoric experience possible, right? But that is not happenstance. That is a very tailored experience that they've cultivated over 50 plus years. Over 50 plus years, they've cultivated the experience. What should you have in a movie theater? What should you eat? How to drive people to eat? How to time the movie? And all of these different things that you may not even think folks have invested, thousands of hours and millions of dollars into studying so that they can increase their profit, so that they can increase their bottom line, right? So that you can spend more money at the movie, so you can spend more time at the movie or anywhere else for that matter. They do that by consciously controlling your neurochemistry and biochemistry. So when you are not actively in control of it, someone else is. When you're not in control of your neurochemistry and biochemistry, somebody else is, right? When you're not actively building your body, somebody else is. And they're going to build your body for their purposes, right? Which is usually profit driven. Which is usually profit driven. Well, it's one thing to purposely get high while watching a movie, right? It's another thing to do it without knowing that that's what you're doing, right? It's another thing to get your child, your 8-year-old or your 10-year-old, a super large soda with a icy slushy and a large chocolate candy with, like all of this crazy stuff to eat, at one time. Like it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different thing. Thank God for my mother. You know what I'm saying? My mom's was a gangster. You know what I'm saying? So we went to the movies. My mom's always had a purse filled up with food from the house. Yeah. My mom's bag was loaded. She came in with leftover dinner, sandwiches, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We had actual regular food in the movie theater. You know what I'm saying? So we'd get a few things from the concession stand. You know what I'm saying? Because she we got favorites. You know what I'm saying? I used to like Whoppers when I was little. The malt candy, and she had whatever she liked. But what I'm saying is, we weren't just filling up on sugar and chemicals to induce, a dopamine drip in our brain. You know what I'm saying? It was buffered by regular food mixed in. You know what I'm saying? And I never really been a big on soda. So there was some balance. Yeah, we're going to get a few things, enjoy the movie, but we're not getting ready to look like zombies in here. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to look like zombies in here. Hey, listen, don't snitch on yourself. Don't snitch on yourself. Don't snitch on yourself. Man, maybe beans, maybe some pasta and some whatever, you know what I'm saying? Spaghetti and meat sauce, whatever was, whatever was, whatever was on deck, or maybe just some sandwiches, whatever the case, you know what I'm saying? But some regular food, you know what I'm saying? So that just laid the groundwork. So I know that, hey, I'm not limited. I'm not limited. You know what I'm saying? Now, movie theaters at some point did catch up because they started to make movie theaters with more of a food menu, right? So you can actually get some hot food items. Some movie theaters actually have restaurants inside them, so you can get you some food. Some better than others. Vegan options, non-vegan options, sides, whatever, right? Point being, because we're getting distracted. Point being, you want to be in the driver's seat. Whatever's going on with you, you want to make that conscious decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I tell all my children, and not equating anybody to children, but I'm just saying, when I talk to my children about sex, right? I just tell them that I want them to be in the driver's seat. Just want you to be in the driver's seat, period. Don't let nobody take nothing from you, and don't let nobody push you to make a decision you don't want to make. Outside of that, I got your back. You know what I'm saying? Outside of that, I got your back. We Gucci. I'm going to ride with you, right? As long as you don't let nobody take nothing from you, you don't take nothing from nobody, right? But you do what you want to do. And I think it's the same when it comes to what we should all hold private, our feelings and our thoughts. Our feelings and our thoughts should not be controlled via remote control by somebody sitting behind a desk. Because they know, okay, boom, if they have this, then they'll have that, then they'll do this, then they'll do. And so we get to go from, and so I don't know if everybody remembers, but a couple of weeks ago, we started having a conversation. I was saying that when you first start investing, you just want to get some type of money back on your investment. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? You don't really have like a plan. You're just trying to get a return. When you become like a really successful investor, you start to position your investments so that they all reinforce one another. And why that's relevant in this conversation is because one of the things that you learn about, I used to work on Wall Street. One of the things we learned there was that ownership is private, right? The CEOs, CFOs, and all of these guys with the alphabets, none of them actually own these businesses. These big businesses, these are not the owners of these businesses. The owners, you never know who they are. The one thing that we learned, because we had to like read up on a person, and then we try to make a cold call to them and see if we can get connected to them and try to get them to purchase stuff or invest in stuff. So we had to kind of get a quick little orientation of who the person is. So that way we have some sort of familiarity, because if you don't, you get banged on by the secretary or assistant. You don't get to the, but usually these people all have sectors and they reinforce their stuff, one thing into another. So like Warren Buffett, a lot of people consider Warren Buffett to be the best investor ever. But Warren Buffett made most of his money selling candy. He invests in candy. So he invests in other businesses that invest in candy. He invests in sugar because he invests in candy. He invests in soda because he invests in candy. So I'm saying all this to say the ownership behind a lot of businesses that go together is usually the same group of people. It's the same group of people. That's why there's a similar feeling when you go to certain places. Like TGI, Thank God It's Friday restaurants have a similar vibe to Applebee's. You can tell that Applebee's and TGIF, they like, you know what I'm saying? Like Burger King and McDonald's. And the thing is, we believe that Burger King and McDonald's is ops, or these are competing businesses, when they're really not. Because in private, the people who own stock in one usually have stock in the other. And so when they're doing research on how to get people to move, they want to control your whole outing. Okay, yeah, well, they're going to leave here and they're going to go here. Boom. And if they go here, we want to have a strip mall set up within, 3 to 5 miles that gives them 4 different eating options. So we want to have this type of dining experience, that type of dining, boom, 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 boom. And so when people plan out cities or towns and they set up, how they want to construct everything, they're putting things together in a certain space, right? And then they're tailoring what is in each space to get you to move from space to space and spend X amount of time and money in their businesses. That to us may look separate. To us, it may look separate. We we're going by the name that's on the, we don't know that the private owners, the stockholders, the dividend getters, well, they have money invested all the way across the board, right? So they have a vested interest in being able to control your impulse spending, right? Your impulse spending. If you look around within since COVID came out, almost everybody should have noticed a change in your supermarket. And what I mean by change in your supermarket, I mean, since COVID came out, new research has came. So the old supermarket layout, right? The old supermarket layout is you put the produce over here, and you might put the bread on this side with the produce, depending on how well your produce sell. And then all the way on the other side of the supermarket, you have your dairy products, milk, cheese, and eggs. So that way a person has to go from one side of the supermarket to the other side of the supermarket, and it at least gives the supermarket the maximum opportunity to get you to pass by something with some yellow, red, and blue colors on it and go, ooh, let me grab a bag. I didn't come here to the supermarket to get this, but man, let me get some of these. Or if you got your children, your children going, Mommy, Dad, let me get. So it was set up like that. That was the primary setup. So some people's supermarkets are still set up that way. COVID, the shopping experience changed. So post-COVID, supermarkets have created, some new researchers came out on psychology, on how to control your spending, right? So now some supermarkets have this new micro setup where they take the slowest things that never sell in the supermarket and couple them with the fastest, right? So you'll go in the supermarket and you'll see like refried beans might be now located next to like peanut butter and jelly. You know what I'm saying? And individually, you don't know what's happening. You just know like, yo, why do they keep moving the stuff around in the supermarket? Like, what is this? Because you come in the supermarket, you ain't got time to waste. You've been shopping there for X amount of time, so okay, I go here, grab this, grab that, boo. I'm at the register, I'm out. You get in the supermarket, you're like, hey, wasn't the, what you call it right here? Where's the, oh yeah, we just did a new design. Yeah, that's on aisle 18 now. And then you get to 18, it's not on 18. That's because the supermarket changes so much, even the employees don't know where the food items is at anymore. But that's all geared to get you to purchase more, right? So all of these things, they spend millions of dollars and thousands of hours researching how you work. Let me just get to prayer before Tika get on my case. All right, let me just get to prayer before Tika get on my case. All right. Where is it? Man, I can't even find it. Oh, here we go.
Inky prayer number 2. We give thanks and praise to the Most High God for the divine spark that set our cells into perpetual motion. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and caves. We give thanks for the ability to drink clean water every 60 minutes, flooding the river of life. We give thanks that sugar has not covered our ferries and turned them into stone. We give thanks that darkness has not covered the riverbanks with calcium and turned them into stone. We give thanks that anger and fear have not turned our almonds bitter, turning our heart to stone. We give thanks for smooth sailing upstream through the valley of death, through the superior vena cava into the right atrium. We give thanks for smooth sailing around the heart through the corona crown, joining the vortex in the right atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway to the vineyard. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate to the vineyard closes. We give thanks to the Most High God that provides the light and our breath, and the light in our breath. We give thanks for the fine olfactory system that makes our grapes ripe with light. We give thanks for the Jed pillar that provides us with a stable fleet of ferry boats to dock in our vineyard. We give thanks for smooth sailing through the pulmonary vein into the storm of the left atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter closes. We give thanks for the magnetism of the most holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and our caves. Amen.
Woo! Man, that 9 o'clock one be tough sometimes. Hey, at 9 o'clock, them 9 o'clock squats. Man, I'm gonna tell you. Them 9 o'clock squats, man. Them 6 in the morning squats, that 6 in the morning work be nothing. That 12 o'clock work, that be nothing. It start getting tricky. It's 3 to 9, it start getting tricky. It start getting tricky. Depending on what my day look like, 9 o'clock squats be dangerous. All right, so let's look at a couple of things. All right. We talk about stress. Right? Talk about stress. I just want to talk about dopamine for a second. Right? Because we know dopamine Dopamine is the primary catecholamine for neuromelanin, right? The primary driver of neuromelanin production in the brain, right? At least associated with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? Norepinephrine, norepinephrine, we still learning stuff about norepinephrine, right? So in the brain, The primary targeted research is the substantia nigra for Alzheimer's and dementia. And you have the locus ceruleus, which is another center in the brain. And that's primarily, the pigment there is primarily driven by norepinephrine, right? But the substantia nigra and the addiction reward pathways, dopamine, right? The other thing, dopamine and norepinephrine are the primary catecholamines that also help your body to regulate visceral fat, right? So metabolizing visceral fat, cleaning the inner organs, losing the inner fat, right, is also going to be driven here. So being able to control your dopamine levels not only means controlling your memory, not only means controlling your cognition, not only means controlling your body's ability to retrieve fat and metabolize fat, but also your pleasure, your enjoyment, your focus, right? All of those things are also tied to dopamine. So it's very important, and this is why biochemists get $1 bazillion to engineer foods. And this is where the whole concept of the bliss point came in. I wonder if they're still talking about the bliss point, right? But the bliss point was basically the precise amount of salt, sugars, and oils that you blend together to get the maximum endorphin cannabinoid explosion in the brain. So you immediately sense such pleasure from the food or the drink, or the food and the drink, that you want more. You want that experience again and again. And so when they engineered that with food, places that, like a movie theater, a carnival, an amusement park, places that you go to feel good, they want to be able to tie those places, the memories of those places, they want to tie those together with high, with you getting high. They want to be able to control your natural high and tie that together to your experience. So they want to connect your olfactory system with your addiction and reward pathways and create a moment. And that moment will make you or break you. That moment will be the thing that makes your children say, I want to go back to Disney World. I want to go back to the movies. Or you remember that place that you went with your wife, because now that first place where you and your wife fell in love, there is a chemical recipe that's there, right? So now you add into the endorphins and the dopamine. Now you add in maybe some oxytocin and some other, there's some other things that created that moment for you, neurochemically. You know what I'm saying? And it's cool. You don't want to outlearn life. You still want to go places and enjoy yourself. You just want to know what's going on, right? You want to know what's going on. You want to know that too much dopamine will make you crazy. Right? Too much dopamine is associated with mania, right? And mania in the science world, in the mental health world, is a part of what we call in society you being a maniac. Yeah, this is a maniac. She was a maniac. Like, yeah. Dopamine levels through the roof. What's a good way to push your dopamine levels through the roof? Sugar. Sugar. Yeah, sugar. Good old sugar. Right? Having low levels of dopamine. Right? Low levels of dopamine can push you into anxiety, can push you into depression. Right? Just a wide variety of ways that we get in and out of situations. When we go out, maybe we're drinking, we're having an amazing time tonight. A part of the hangover is not just being dehydrated. Part of the hangover is not just the headache because, your brain is throbbing, right? Because, your cerebral spinal fluid is low. You dehydrated in the worst ways, but it's also the fact that you had so much liquor, your body is probably not able to produce the serotonin levels that you need, right? Because serotonin comes from tryptophan. And tryptophan, the metabolism of tryptophan is inhibited by fructose. Alcohol is fructose, primarily. Right? So you load up on alcohol, just like agave, right? Agave sugar, right, is 90% fructose, right? This is how they make, what is that? Tequila. Tequila is also agave. Let me check that. I might be wrong on that. I think agave is tequila. This is what I'm saying. You got to stop buying that agave. Agave is not good for you. You think agave is good for you. Agave is not good for you. Let me see. I might be tripping. Let me see. Agave tequila. What is the difference between a tequila and 100% agave tequila? The difference between them is in the source of the sugars that are fermented during the fermentation process. In the case of 100% agave tequila, as its name reveals, blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe I'm asking the wrong question because it seems like I'm getting the wrong answer. Okay. Let's change the question. Is tequila made from agave? That's a better question. Boom. Okay, yes, tequila is made from the blue agave plant, specifically its heart called the piña. The piña is cooked, crushed to extract its sugars, and then fermented with yeast and water before being distilled to produce tequila. Okay, yes, I knew I knew something. Yeah, something. Because pretty much all liquors are technically, I ain't gonna say vegan. I'm gonna say plant-based. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes they use animal products in the processing, but typically all of your liquors start off as a fruit or vegetable or some combination of both. Right? Some combination of both. Right? Oh, but just for good measure, let's do this real quick. What percentage of agave sugar is fructose? Okay, boom. So just for good measure, because I know a lot of y'all still on this. Oh, well, I got the Dr. Sabi list, and Dr. Sabi said we get the agave. Well, the Dr. Inky list said knock off the agave. Agave is basically pure natural fructose. As you can see right there, quick search. says agave syrup is 70 to 90% fructose, right? So back in the days, can't fault Dr. Sebi for this. He was only able to deal with the research that he had in front of him. And he was, we still have, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, pandemic, crazy numbers, right? So he was dealing with a lot of that. And so it was reported at the time that agave syrup was a good alternative. And the reason being is because fructose doesn't show up on blood sugar tests. At least not the old school ones. You know what I'm saying? The old school blood sugar tests strictly looked for glucose. So you test your blood. A lot of them are still that way. You test your blood sugar. They're just checking the percentage of glucose that you have floating around in your blood. So technically, if you load up your smoothies, your pancakes, or whatever you're doing with agave syrup, your blood sugar won't spike, right? At least your blood sugar on the blood test won't spike. But now we know that your blood sugar, you're still having crazy effects from agave, even though they don't show up or may not show up on the blood sugar test, right? It's going to mess with your liver, right? Having all that fructose is going to mess with your liver. And this is fructose that's not tied to fiber. So don't go, wait a minute, isn't fructose fruit sugar? Yeah, but when it's in the fruit, it's tied to fiber and pigment. When it's in the syrup, you have stripped the fiber and pigment away from it and concentrated it together in an unnaturally high amount. So it's not the same thing, right? And so when you have all that fructose, the fructose inhibits your body from being able to metabolize tryptophan. So when your body can't properly metabolize tryptophan, that's going to affect your NAD, and that's going to affect your serotonin, and that's going to affect your melatonin. All three of those things require your body to metabolize tryptophan. There's a bunch of other stuff that depends on tryptophan, but those are the three things that you're going to feel immediately. You're going to feel the lower levels of NAD, with your energy levels and your ambition and your drive. Your brain gonna be sluggish. And then serotonin levels, you're gonna feel that low because you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be ready to slap the first person that talked to you, right? You're gonna be in a stinky mood. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those days where everything goes wrong, right? But that's just serotonin levels being low, right? Then that night, you may have a hard time getting to sleep because melatonin levels are low, right? One of your body's primary sources of melatonin is converting serotonin. So if serotonin is low, chances are melatonin to be low until you get your body out of that little funk and you get your tryptophan levels back up, your fructose levels back down, and then everything starts to work the way it was supposed to work, right? But that's just an example. Right? That's just an example of what you can learn when you go to Amazon right now and add this book to your cart. No, just kidding. Actually, I'm not just kidding. If you don't have that book, go to Amazon, add it to your cart, check out, right? But that's just an example of how how you can be controlled like a remote control, like a golem. How you can be controlled like Frankenstein or like a robot, right? How you can be controlled. And that's, not even getting deep into like EMF or radio waves or any of that stuff. Just basic food chemistry, right? While it's on my mind, I just want to pull this up and see what they're saying as of lately. Let's see what we got here. Bliss point in food refers to the specific combination of sugar, salt, and fat that food manufacturers add to maximize the palatability and craveability of their products, making them difficult to stop eating even when one is full. Coined by food scientist Howard Moskowitz, the concept explains why ultra-processed foods, despite being less satiating, can trigger compulsively eating behaviors by hijacking the brain's reward system. That is very beautifully put there. Very beautifully put. Again, the brain's reward system is the dopaminergic neurons, right? The dopaminergic neurons. So whenever you see that, just know what that means. Dopaminergic, right? Dopaminergic neurons also means neuromelanin neurons, right? Dopaminergic means neuromelanin. So when you read that the dopamine or the dopaminergic neurons controls your sleep patterns, your eating patterns, and your sexual habits, what that's also telling you is that the neuromelanin neurons control your sleep patterns, your eating patterns, and your sexual patterns. So that immediately upgrades neuromelanin from a waste product to the primary thing that we need to figure out. And if we had, say, more focus on neuromelanin and these pathways in the brain, we might have less problems with compulsive eating. We might have less problems with sleep. We might have less problems with sex. We might have less problems with addiction. But this is one of those reasons why we have the Black's Anatomy book for adults and for children, right? So make sure you get the Black's Anatomy book for adults and for children, right? Because this is not being discussed. This is not being discussed. We will highlight the mental health issues. We will highlight the deviant sexual practices. We will highlight the eating problems, but we won't highlight that there is one place in the brain where all of these things are centered. And it just so happens to be a coincidence. That's how some folks, it's coincidence that this happens to be a place in the brain that has not been taught. So largely the people are ignorant that the neuromelanin centers in the brain control memory, addiction, sex, eating, sleeping, all of these things that are the drivers of metabolic illness and cancer. All of these things that we say are lifestyle-driven diseases are actually driven by these centers in the brain that are loaded with neuromelanin. For me, it's not a coincidence. Everybody can wrestle with that however they want to wrestle with that. For me, it just goes hand in hand. Oh, we have some areas in the body that everybody's pretty much ignorant of how they work. Oh, we have lots of problems going on in our body that tie back to these places where we haven't quite figured out how they work. Genius. I think I have a way to start fixing some of these issues. Maybe we should all start focusing on studying these places. Right? I'm just saying. We could do better. Tell me, have you studied that lately? Oh man. All right, so there's that. Okay, there's that. Now, we talked about visceral fat in the two books that preceded. The two books that directly preceded the Melanin is Anabolic book. And yes, I have tall stacks of books right here. These two books, right? These two books. You don't have these books, go and get them. The first book is The Death and Resurrection of Rich Abs, Visceral Fat Driven Electrogenic Collapse. Visceral Fat Driven Electrogenic Collapse. The second book is Electrogenic Inhibition, White Paper, Theory of Death by Fat, right? In both of these books, we explore the mechanisms on how visceral fat slowly but surely strangles your organs. How visceral fat slowly but surely strangles your organs by slowly but surely stopping cellular respiration. By slowly but surely stopping your cells from being able to communicate, share energies, share metabolic byproducts, you know, all of the various things that your cells need to do to not only stay energetic and vibrant, but to stay on one page. All of the cells in the liver have to be on one page. All of the cells in the heart have to be on one page. All of my children have to be on one page. Ooh. Yo, it's crazy. It be sounding like a war zone outside this door. Yo, it be sounding crazy outside. Uh-oh, we got the PEDs. I did not notice we got the PEDs. Saint HJ has entered the building. Saint HJ has given us the PEDs. We got the PEDs. Like, subscribe, follow, super chat, join the Patreon, get you some products, Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, everything. Yeah. We got the PEDs. We got the PEDs. This is what I'm talking about, the PEDs. Just in case y'all never saw this before. Let me show you. I'm gonna take a quick picture of it. The very first time he did this without me knowing, I got scared. I thought something was going wrong with my StreamYard. Yo, I thought something was wrong with my StreamYard. I was like, yo, I'm in trouble. They're going to get me. It's over. I'm like, yo, it's over. They're going to get Dr. Inky. Boy, we going down. We going down. They're going to get Dr. Inky. It's over. Hold on. I'm trying to show this on the screen. It's not letting me do it. That is interesting. Let me take a second picture. Okay, let me take a second picture so y'all can see what I'm talking about. I seen these numbers. I was like, what is happening to my page? Something is wrong. We going to jail. I was like, something has happened. Look, because y'all can't see it on YouTube. Y'all can't see that on YouTube. You see that? This is what StreamYard look like on the other side. So you can always see how many people is watching. So whenever HJ shares the video on Twitter, it does this. It goes crazy. So if y'all ever hear me saying we got the PEDs, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the digital performance enhancing drugs right here. When HJ shares the video, we go from we go from 30, 40, 50 people. I'm gonna be like 60, 70. Now, when I first seen it the first time, I swear to God, I was scared. I was like, why does that number keep going up? We just went over 100 and that number's still going. It went to 200. I was like, uh-oh. Them folks coming in. It kept going up, and up. Fine, I come to find out that's HJ sharing the video. Yeah, now that's the old days. That's the old days. That's yeah. That's like 6 pages ago. Yeah, that's when we had 50-something thousand subscribers. Those were the days. Anyway, so thank God for Saint HJ, right? All right, so visceral fat strangles the tissues by blocking electrogenesis, which is the ability to turn your fats and your carbohydrates into electricity. Blocking or slowing down electrogenesis slows down aquagenesis, right? Aquagenesis is what happens at complex number 4, right? So we have complex number 1, complex number 2, 3, 4. Then we have the turbine, right? So at complex number 4 is where water is made. This is where your fresh water comes from. This is the most important water to a human. Not Fiji, not artesian, not spring, not distilled. I got somebody trolling me. Listen, I got somebody trolling me thinking I'm ducking his questions about water because he knows the secret to distilled water. Oh my God, Jesus, take the wheel. These guys be crazy. But anyway, this is the most important water to the human body. You know what I'm saying? The water that your mitochondria produce, right? We know here is where your ATP comes from, right? Here's where your ATP comes from. We know these are your primary inputs, right? These are your primary inputs here, right? NAD and FAD, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is what's going on in your mitochondria. Your fats and your carbohydrates are being broken down into electrons. Those electrons are funneled via quantum tunneling through these complexes, right? Here, fresh, pure water. This is the only fresh, pure water that you can get. Is the pure water that you make. This is where holy water is. This is the purest water on planet Earth, produced right here in your cells, right? And then here, obviously, we are recycling ATP, right? So when we start to get higher levels of visceral fat, it slows down this process. Not to mention, right? We already talked about homocysteine, right? Homocysteine blocking both of these guys, right? Via tryptophan metabolism, right? But we have NAD, right? Vitamin B3, right? Crucial key pieces here. Anytime carbohydrate metabolism goes down, fatty acid metabolism goes down, your body's ability to produce electricity in the mitochondria goes down. As that happens, the water being produced goes down. The ATP slows down. Guess what else happens? The mitochondria themselves get fat and out of shape. Your mitochondria can be muscular. Your mitochondria can be in shape. Right? Your mitochondria can be muscular. They can be in shape. This is why people who are athletic, people who are fit, they have way more mitochondria than the average person. A person who's fit, not only do they have more mitochondria, but the mitochondria are smaller and faster, and they have more cristae, right? When we look online and we see pictures of mitochondria, they look like kind of like that. And then they got these squiggly lines across, like you see the diagram of mitochondria kind of look like that, right? Well, there's no standard number of these lines. These squiggly lines are called cristae, and they're really more like crevices inside the mitochondria. And inside these squiggly lines is where all of these electron transport chains are. So not only do people that are healthier and fitter have smaller mitochondria with more of these squiggly lines, but more of these squiggly lines means more of these complexes. And more of these complexes means that you have a easier time metabolizing sugars and fats. So you can process more sugars and fats faster and easier because you have more units individually creating that electricity, right? So as we start to retard that process, we start to retard everything attached to these specific cell groups. And so the thing about visceral fat is that visceral fat can clog these things up. And the heart has a variety of different types of visceral fat that impact it, right? A variety of types of visceral fat that impact it. So all of these little clever things. Yeah, the mitochondria get them cuts. That's a fact. The mitochondria be having a six-pack. That's hey, yo, I be telling this story all the time, but I'm telling you, anytime I talk about mitochondria, it comes to my mind. I swear, I'll never forget it, I don't think, as long as I live. Teaching in Black and Nobel, and I got pimps, hustlers, people off the block. I got med students in there. I got a wild group of people in there. And when I start talking about mitochondria biogenesis, everybody's like, what? I'm like, yeah, when you do the push-ups, the calisthenics and the isometrics, you boost up the mitochondrial biogenesis. They like, I don't know what he's talking about. Oh my God. 20 years later, and I still have people saying that. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you explain that to me? All right. So then we can move on to aquaporin channels and ion channels. All right. So we can move on to aquaporin channels and ion channels. And all of these are in the lecture for week 9, day 3. Right. All of these, I believe these are all in there. Right. So let's talk about aquaporins. And ion channels. Aquaporins. Matter of fact, we might as well throw gap junctions in there, right? Gap junctions. Yeah, let's get gap junctions in there. I don't think this is in the lecture for this, for week 9 day, but they might as well be in there. Yeah, they might as well be in there. All right, so we're gonna get some Chanel. We're gonna get some Chanel high fashion. All right, and we are going to defer to the Google demons. What are the Google demons talking about? Let's go to the Google demons. Okay, what are you talking about over here, Google demons? Okay. All right, so first let's go gap junctions. Gap junctions are protein-lined channels connecting the cytoplasm of adjacent cells, allowing ions and small molecules to pass directly between them for communication and metabolic coordination, right? So gap junctions are important because cells that make up tissues use them for very, very, very quick communication. Anything produced in one cell automatically goes to the next cell, and the next cell, and the next cell, and the next cell, right? So even if you have a cell that for whatever reason it's not pulling its own weight, the surrounding cells will help to cover that cell's misstep. So you may have, let's say for instance, you got 1,000 cells inside a tissue group, right? Or 100,000, whatever. One or two is not going to, they say one monkey's not going to stop the show. Wait, how did it go? One monkey is not going to stop the show. I think it's something like that. Anyway, you get the idea, right? So gap junctions are important for cellular communication, right? Cellular communication, and then under gap junctions can include ions, right? But the difference between ion channels, like categorized standalone as by themselves, versus gap junctions, is an ion channel typically goes from the inside of a cell to, like extracellular fluid. Whereas a gap junction goes from inside of one cell to the inside of another cell, right? But the same thing, the purpose is the same, right? Whenever we're dealing with the flow of ions, right? Whenever we're dealing with the flow of ions, what we're doing is changing voltage potential. We're producing electricity, right? We're changing voltage potential, we're producing electricity, and we're usually turning switches. We're flipping switches in there. Yeah, we're flipping switches in there. That's what the ion channels do. So at certain thresholds of electrical activity in the cell, some things come on, some things go off, right? So when we start to get certain ions flooding into a beta cell, insulin production comes on. When those things go out of the beta cell, it hits the off switch. Now insulin production goes off. So even when we're talking about hormone production is driven by electrical activity. So this is why I say at the basis of the cellular environment, you have electricity and magnetism, because all of the things in the cellular environment are driven by electricity and magnetism, even the ions themselves. The ions themselves are driven by attraction and repulsion. Attraction and repulsion, right? All right, aquaporins. Let's dig into aquaporins. Here we go. What does the Google Demons tell us about aquaporins? Protein channels and cell membranes that facilitate the rapid and selective transport of water, and in some cases, small solutes, like glycerol across the membrane, right? Important, because defects in aquaporin function are linked to kidney disease, cataracts, and epilepsy. Kidney disease, cataracts, and epilepsy, and that list is going to go on. That list is going to go on. They're going to have all kinds of brain diseases that will soon be in that list. Let me show you why. Let's go back here. Right? Remember, this is new research still, so... Oh, wow. The Google Demons have nothing to say about it? That's deep. That's deep. So it's so new still that the Google Demons they don't even have anything that, yeah. So if you look at the papers, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2021, 2022. Oh, we have one from 2018, 2024, 2025, right? So all of these papers that are released on aquaporins in the glymphatic system are relatively new. Aquaporin 4 in the glymphatic system and its implication, blah, 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 blah. What do you got? The clearance function is essential for maintaining brain tissue homeostasis, and the glymphatic system is the main pathway for removing brain interstitial solutes. Aquaporin 4 is the most abundantly expressed aquaporin in the central nervous system and is an integral component of the glymphatic system. In recent years, many studies have shown that aquaporin 4 affects the morbidity and recovery process in central nervous system disorders through the glymphatic system. And aquaporin 4 shows notable variability in central nervous system disorders and is part of the pathogenesis of these diseases. Okay. Right. And then here we go down, we see the keywords: Alzheimer's, what we got? Idiopathic pressure, hydrocephalus, intracerebral hemorrhaging. So this is brain bleeds, right? Migraines, neuromyelitis. Okay, yeah, you got it, right? So a good variety of brain, diseases are going to be, they're going to start to it's going to start coming through the information, right? But that could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? But we're on the pulse of it today. And so visceral fat clogs all of these channels. Cellular communication, the ability to produce electricity, the ability to share and transport water. Now, if you're constantly producing water in your mitochondria, a lot of the water that you're sharing cell to cell is water produced in the cell. This is what makes this such a dynamic new understanding. Most of the water transported cell to cell is produced in the cell. So when we start to looking at ion channels, gap junctions, and I should have put microtubules, filaments, tau proteins, blah, 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 because the list could go on, right? All of the electric, I don't even know what to say. All of the electric, not machinery, all of the electrical wiring. All of the electrical wiring inside the cells, from microtubules to filaments to all of these different channels that are transporting ions to, negative 70 millivolts up to positive 40, all that whole entire conversation is driven here, right? When you're talking about the heart, this is how your heart beat. This is the focal point of this guy. Right? This is how the magic happens. This is how the magic happens. Right? This is how the magic happens. Right? That electromagnetic wave from the SA node to the AV node that makes you a living person. That makes you a living person. Right? So all of these various things, right, are impacted by visceral fat, are impacted by cortisol, stress, are impacted by what we eat, when we eat it, what's the activity, right? And think about going back to our first example with the movie. We're going to grab as much sugary treats as possible, and then we're going to go sit down for 2 hours in a dark room. Like literally, we're going to go sit down in a dark room with mad sugar. You're like, well, what about the popcorn? Popcorn might as well just be sugar. Just think of it as a bucket of sugar and salt, right? And we're going to sit down in this room for 2 hours, and we're going to have all of this blue light blasting away, right? So I'm telling you this as somebody who loves the movies. I love to go to the movies. I mean, that's like was my dad's favorite thing, to go get all his children and take us to the movies, because we all had different mamas, you know what I'm saying? So he come round everybody up, take us to the movie, you know what I'm saying? So that was a ritual, that was a thing, So I sit down and watch movies with my children, like that's a family time, you know what I'm saying? But, they know, okay, go give me that bottle of bitters. Go grab them vitamins from over there. Yeah, everybody load up before we get up out of here. Everybody load up when we get back, right? Because we know what we're getting ready to do, right? So we know we're getting ready to get blasted. Our vitamin A is getting ready to get attacked. We already know. Our vitamin A is getting ready to get attacked, right? And if your vitamin A goes down, right, because vitamin A is vital to your liver and your heart, anything that attacks vitamin A attacks your liver and your heart, right? And I know you probably was thinking, wait a minute, I thought you was going to say anything that attacks vitamin A attacks your eyes. No. anything that attacks your vitamin A attacks your eyes, your liver, your heart, your neurons, and your melanocytes. Because yes, you need a variety of carotenoids in the eye, your lutein, zeaxanthins, all of these things, rhodopsin, all of these things require vitamin A, but your heart and your liver also require vitamin A so that they don't, what is this thing called? When it turns to like hard fiber, right? That's because you have low vitamin A, low vitamin E, right? But then also vitamin A is what helps stem cells to differentiate into neurons and melanocytes, right? So there's a wide variety of crucial things that you need vitamin A for. And blue light toxicity, blue light attacks vitamin A, right? Because remember, vitamin A is basically like a pigment. So blue light is the specific light that pigment, that's the wavelength of that pigment. So when blue light is coming in and blue light's attacking your eyes, it's because blue light is increasing your vitamin A turnover unnaturally fast. And so you don't have the vitamin A for the pigment production, right? It's not just rhodopsin, it's not just opsins, it's also melanocytes, it's also neurons, right? And then going even further, it's also the liver and the heart and some other stuff. Anyway, visceral fat, right? Visceral fat. All right, what else we talking about? What else we talking about? How long we been talking? 2 hours? Okay, what else we talking about? Mitochondrial disintegration. Oh, that's crazy. Oh my goodness. We had almost 1,200 people watching. Listen, if I run out of stuff to start talking about, I will start dancing to keep y'all on the stream. Oh my God. Thank God I don't dance to eat. I would starve. All right, mitochondrial disintegration. Healthy mitochondria are dynamic, oscillating between fusion and fission in response to cellular energy needs. When energy is overabundant but cannot be used due to insulin resistance or oxygen scarcity, mitochondria become swollen, fragmented, electron leaking. Okay, electron leaking is the nastiest of the nasties. Right? The nastiest of the nasties. Right? Going back to that electron transport chain. Going back to that electron transport chain. Right? The closer these guys are, right? The closer these guys are, right? And that's not exactly how it goes, but just it's good for you to think of it this way. The closer these complexes are, the less electron leakage you have, right? And when you have electrons that should be making this jump from complex to complex to complex, or complex to, ubiquinone and cytochrome C, whatever. But when they leak out of this electron transport chain, that sends signals to other parts of your body, right? That sends signals to other parts of your body. And not only will your mitochondria numbers go down, not only will your mitochondria numbers, your mitochondria themselves get fat and sloppy, right? But you may send the signal for apoptosis, right? For apoptosis, right? If you get a high amount of leakage from these complexes here, because as the mitochondria get fatter, as the mitochondria get more swollen, these complexes spread out. So it becomes a nasty loop. It becomes a nasty loop where the mitochondria spread out, right? And the more they spread out, the more electrons you get leaking. So the more electrons you get leaking, your body doesn't play. When you get electrons leaking from these chains, from out of the mitochondria, you get sparks flying, right? Think of it like that. Sparks flying. Your body signals these cells for demolition, to be recycled, right? And people who typically are dealing with insulin sensitivity or obesity have a higher than normal cellular turnover. They have a higher than normal cellular turnover, right? And that can create some other nasty loops because you're putting too much pressure now on the liver. The liver has to make all of the material for the cellular membranes, right? All those phospholipids and cholesterols, all that has to come from the liver, right? So you go from, what you should be at, maybe 50 billion cells a day, to turning over 60 billion, 70 billion, 80 billion, to the point where your required cellular turnover, you don't have your body can't make the turnover. So now some of your tissues are starting to decline, and you're building up these, senescent cells or zombie cells. Like, there's cells that are there, but the cells don't have active machinery. And they don't have active machinery either because they don't have, they're not producing power. They're partially destroyed. Part of the cell is damaged, or the cell's information, DNA, RNA, endoplasmic reticulum chain, somewhere in there is broken. It's a variety of reasons why you get senescent cells now. But senescent cells increase your body's, susceptibility to autoimmune disease, right? Or if you're somebody that has that somewhere in the genes, this can be a hidden trigger for autoimmune disease. It increases your risk of developing cancers and tumors, right? So there's a wide variety of things that this problem causes, right? Including but not limited to cancers and tumors, right? This is a central feature of Otto Warburg and Thomas Seyfried's corpus of information on cellular respiration and cancer. And of course, you can go and get the Medicine book, because we have a book on it. So if you don't have this book, right, you know what to do. Go to Amazon, add that book to your cart, and check out. All right. The breakdown of cellular timing. Glycation as neurological sabotage. Glycation is non-enzymatic binding of sugar. Insulin is high. AMPK is low. Oxidative stress. Okay, so tau proteins and tubulin. All right, yeah, because I'm trying to get to all of these. We're trying to knock all these joints out. So let's take a look at tau proteins and tubulin. All right, so tau protein is a microtubule associated protein found primarily in the brain. Its main function is to stabilize microtubules, which are essential for maintaining the structure and function of neurons. Tau proteins help to ensure that microtubules are properly assembled and prevent their depolymerization. Depolymerization. Okay, say that 10 times fast. All right, role in neurodegenerative diseases, abnormal aggregation and phosphorylation of tau protein are key features of several neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease, progressive supranuclear palsy, corticobasal degeneration, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come to add to the lovely list of going brain dead. Okay. Tubulin. Tubulin is a globular protein that plays a crucial role in the structure and function of microtubules, which are essential components of the cell's cytoskeleton. So typically what we're talking about here are neurons, I believe. So let's just do this. Let's do that. Bam. There we go. So that might help make this make a little bit more sense, or be a little bit more abstract, or a little bit less abstract, excuse me. Right? In neurons, tubulin forms microtubules, which are essential for cell structure and transport. While tau is a microtubule associated protein that binds to tubulin to stabilize and promote microtubule assembly. In healthy neurons, tau is a functional protein that supports the microtubule cytoskeleton. However, in neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease, tau can become hyperphosphorylated, detach from microtubules, and aggregate in neurofibrillary tangles, leading to neuronal dysfunction and degeneration. Okay, hold up. I think they trolling. So let's do this. Neurofibrillary tangles. Blood sugar. High blood sugar and low blood sugar are associated with neurofibrillary tangles, a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, by disrupting brain insulin signaling, increasing oxidative stress, and directly affecting. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Sometimes the Google demons have to be wrestled into submission, right? Insulin resistance in the brain, similar to type 2 diabetes, impairs glucose utilization and leads to the accumulation of hyperphosphorylated tau protein, which forms neurofiber. Okay, things get tangled up. Things get tangled up. Okay. All right. Let's do this also. Neuron microtubules. And then let's go electric. Okay, let's go electric waves. Let's take a quick stop right here at electric waves. Yes, Neuron microtubules can generate and conduct electrical waves exhibiting electrical oscillations at various frequencies that may contribute to neuron signaling, brainwave activity, and potentially consciousness. These highly charged nonlinear components act as biomolecular transistors, creating self-similar resonance patterns and transmitting energy and information, a concept explored in theories like orchestrated objective reduction. Okay, so I wanted to translate a little. I wanted to move. We'll just simplify. I wanted to move from because we kind of started with gap junctions, ion channels, and aquaporins being able to sustain electrical activity. I wanted to kind of segue back to that space, right? So that you understand when we're talking about these little bits and pieces and some of these parts, right? Some of these parts, this is what, Robert Becker or Dr. Sebi, like this is how we continue to build on their legacies by being able to go deeper into electrical activity and how electricity does two things at once in the body, right? Electricity powers the body, but electricity also serves as a way to transmit information. So it's not just energy production, it's information sharing. And information sharing is as important as energy, which is why they're pretty much the same stuff inside your body. The thing that gives you energy is also the information carrying thing. So they're one and the same, right? The same electricity or electrical currents that your body is generating for power, for energy, your body's also generating those as signals, right? As a way to communicate to nearby cells, as a way to translate into, hormones, peptides, neurotransmitters, right? Neurotransmitters, that's how neurons work. That's how we get neurotransmitters, right? The body of the cell, you got the ions in and out, changing the, conductivity of the cell, the electrical activity. That's going to translate into, it's going to be put into so you have some electrical activity, which has information associated with it. That information is packaged like into a mail, like into email, or packaged into like a envelope, old school, where you lick the envelope and send it in the post office, right? That mail, that package is your neurotransmitter, right? That's your neurotransmitter. So depending on the type of neuron, depends on the type of neurotransmitters associated or catecholamines associated. But it starts with electrical activity. So whether we're talking about neuromelanin at the end product, dopamine or norepinephrine before that, the conversion of tyrosine to dopa before we get to a catecholamine, or, microtubule, the synapse, it all starts with the electricity. It all starts with the signaling, right? It all starts with the electricity. So being able to ever never. Y'all be trolling. Listen, it's so much stuff in the human body. It's amazing. You know what I'm saying? And because science just started this, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a brand new journey. John Q. Public feels like we know a lot about the human body, but we really don't. That's why our most two important organs is the ones that kills us the most. Like, that's crazy. Heart and brain, number one, number two thing killing us. And that's because we don't understand this electrical activity in the mitochondria, which is the reason why the number three killer, cancer, is in the building. Yeah, because cancer, the brain, and the heart all depend on electrical activity. Right? All right. So, going back over here. Right? Going back over here to our Google demons. Right? How microtubules generate electrical waves. Microtubules are bundles of highly charged protein polymers within neurons that can function as non-linear electrical transmission lines. When subjected to electrical stimuli, microtubule bundles generate electrical oscillations. These oscillations can occur at frequencies similar to brain waves, such as 39 hertz and 93 hertz. Microtubules can act as biomolecular transistors, potentially by regulating ion channels, right? We just had those up there, contributing to the gating and control of neuron excitability. The assembly and disassembly of microtubules provides a continuous supply of energy and can create oscillating electrical fields. Now, what does that mean? Once we have oscillating electrical fields, what do we have? Right? We're going to have some magnetic fields. Yeah. And once we have some electric fields and some magnetic fields doing their thing, right? We have electromagnetic waves. Now we have light being produced. Now we have a whole nother reason to have various pigments in places inside our brain where light doesn't necessarily reach. It's because it's not for the other light. It's for the internal light produced inside the brain, inside the cells, inside the body. Right? A whole nother conversation. Oh, we going crazy. Okay, come on, HJ. You got to be ashamed of yourself. This is the highest we ever been at. We had 1,291 people in the live stream. It's still going up. So somebody else must be sharing the live stream. Listen, everybody, if you're on Twitter, hit the repost button. Everybody hit the repost button. Let's see how many people could go into the video before we shut it off. Everybody in Twitter, hit the repost button. Just hit the repost button. And if you're watching on YouTube, but you also have a Twitter page, leave the YouTube and go to Twitter. So that way you can watch on Twitter and then hit the repost button. Twitter makes it very easy and convenient for you to share somebody's stream. Just hit the repost button. Boop. 1,300. Man, we never had 1,300 in the live before. We never had 1,300 in the live before. I'm so easily satisfied in life. I'm so easily satisfied in life. My goals are so low. Oh, Tap Netcha, talk that talk. Talk that talk. Okay. All right. Time as an electrical signal. Okay, no, we're going to leave that. We're going to leave that for you guys. All right. Cardiac aquaporins and hydration rhythms. Okay, we might need to. All right, so this will probably be the last thing before we finish out. We probably need to talk about the heart Yeah, not probably. We need to talk about the heart a little bit. Little bit. Right? Let's talk about the heart a little bit. Actually, let's just go through the aquaporins real quick. That way, maybe you could take some notes real quick. Yeah, maybe you could take some notes real quick. Right? Let's just run through these aquaporins real quick. Right? Let's run through these aquaporins real quick. All right. Okay. All right. Aquaporins are channel proteins that conduct water in small solutes across membranes with quantum precision. Each type serves a specific organ function, tuning, hydration. All right, if you want to know where we at, remember, we are in the book. Okay? So jump in the book. Week 9, day 3 is on 310. If you do not have this book, then you are smoking crack. No, I'm just kidding. If you do not have this book, go to Amazon and get this book. This is the book for the class, right? This is not just a random YouTube video. This is week 9, day 3 in our curriculum on melanin and fat, or the melanin system and fat. So where we would be in terms of day 3, right? We would be on page 314, right? This is the post-lunch lecture, right? The post-lunch lecture. This is kind of where we would be at in the book. All right. Let's go. Oh, yes. Let's go. Let's go, Cecil. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Look at Tika. You know, Tika always sitting at the front of the class with an apple for the teacher. Oh, my God. All right. So, anyway, so aquaporins, the water gatekeepers of the temple. Aquaporins are channel proteins that conduct water in small solutes across membranes with quantum precision. Each type serves a specific organ function, tuning hydration, charge flow, and metabolic rhythm. Aquaporin 1 is found in red blood cells, the heart, and the kidneys. It regulates plasma water flow and organ perfusion, ensuring that water reaches charged tissues with speed and accuracy. Aquaporin 2, 3, and 4, deeply involved in kidney reabsorption. These gates reside in the nephron's architecture, deciding which water returns to the body and which is excreted. A holy balance of retention and release. Aquaporin 3 is unique in that it also transports glycerol, which is like an alcohol sugar. It is active in the skin and colon, affecting both hydration and energy transfer. In dry skin and poor gut rhythm, aquaporin 3 dysfunction may be a hidden cause. Aquaporin 4 plays a key role in the brain and the heart. It synchronizes water movement in astrocytes and cardiac tissue. Okay, astrocytes are so inside the brain, right? You got like, So neurons are like celebrities, you know what I'm saying? Like superstars. And, you know, they need like assistance, and their assistants need assistance. So astrocytes and glial cells are like the assistants and the assistants to the neurons, right? The assistants and the assistants, the assistants. Yeah, I don't even know if that's good English. That might just be crazy. But you get what I'm saying. They're basically there to service and help the neurons, keep them clean, keep them hydrated, you know, do all of the things that need to be done so that the neuron can just do what neurons do, right? And that plays a key role also in the heart, right? Because remember, the heart is not just, you know, cardiac muscle. The heart is not just SA node, AV node, Purkinje fiber, right? And then a bunch of muscle. You also have a huge population of melanocytes and a huge population of neurons in the heart, right? And that's not to be mixed up with the nerves, right? Because you have nerve connectivity, sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? But you also have neurons in the heart. So the heart is like a fully functional body within a body. I think if we start to think of the heart that way, we'll take care of our hearts better. A fully functional body within a body, right? Like when you see Men in Black and it has the little tiny alien inside the human body that's operating it, that's kind of how the heart is working. The heart has its own muscle tissue, neuron, like everything. The heart has its own everything. The heart has its own circulatory system, muscle, like everything. The heart has its own everything. It is literally like a miniature creature. It's like a whole nother thing. You know what I'm saying? Calling the heart an organ like really downgrades the heart, because the other tissues are not just, they're just not even close to what the heart is, what the heart does, how the heart operates. So no disrespect, you know, like to kidneys or livers or the complexity or intelligence required, you know, for the spleen and blah, blah, blah. But it's just not the same as the human heart. The human heart is crazy, right? So anyway, I get romantic. And then start getting crazy. Like, you know that the heart in the Hebrew, the heart in the Hebrew is spelled LV. And so the L is the number 30, V is the number 2. So L and V in Hebrew is the number 32. And the number 32 is the 32 teeth, which is why the tribe of Levi is the teaching tribe. So don't do it, Inky. Just stick to the science. So I have to watch myself. I get too in love, and then I might float off. So we got to stick to the science. We got to stick to the science. So anyway, astrocytes are very key in neuron function. Very key in neuron function. Astrocytes and glial cells. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Contributing to neurological coherence and heartbeat regulation. This is one of the central aquaporins in the rhythm of the Christ wave or crest wave, right? The QRST complex. Aquaporin 7 governs the export of glycerol from fat cells. It directly affects how stored fat can be converted into usable energy. Without aquaporin 7 function, fat cannot breathe. So if fat cannot breathe, fat cannot be metabolized, right? If the fat cannot be oxygenated, you cannot break that fat down. Aquaporin 8 is involved in osmoregulation and is found in the liver and bile ducts. It helps maintain charge balance and fluid consistency inside detoxifying organs. Aquaporin 9 through aquaporin 11, says 9, 10, and 11, are more specialized, involved in immune responses and reproductive function. They fine-tune hydration during inflammation, tissue repair, right? Hint, hint, autophagy, right? Mitophagy, response to what's that thing? Hypertrophy, right? Piezoelectric pressure for the bones and the collagen-based tissues, right? All of that's up under tissue repair. And right, we have reproductive cycles aligning immunity with electric and water flow. Core doctrine: aquaporins are electroconductive decision points. Without them, water stagnates. With them, structured water enters and prepares the cell for field coherence. Cardiac aquaporins and hydration rhythm. The heart is not just a pump, it is a hydraulic oscillator. Aquaporins in the heart, aquaporin 1 and 4. Aquaporin 1 ensures rapid osmotic shifts across cardiac vessels and myocytes. Aquaporin 4 regulates support cells, stabilizes contraction rhythm. Each heartbeat reflects ionic shift, right? And I should have added some more here because it's not just salt and calcium, right? You got magnesium, you got chloride, you got the whole family, right? But clearance of charge, voltage reset, right? So imbalance in aquaporins, you get fibrosis. Now remember with fibrosis, we talked about vitamin E and vitamin A, right? You get arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is usually your cardiac melanocytes are going to stop arrhythmia from happening. So you literally have cardiac melanocytes that make sure your heart beats every day, right? Ischemia, right? Again, cardiac melanocytes block ischemia. Lymphatic system and brain clearance, right? So what we're going to soon come around to, right? The same way science has worked its way around to the glymphatic system, we're going to eventually come up with the I don't know, I'm trying to think of some word for the heart lymphatic system. They're gonna coin some term for the heart's personal unique lymphatic system, right? Because we have the pericardium. You got the pericardium that the heart sits in, and the pericardium has basically the heart's water supply or lymph fluid, but it's not, it's its own unique fluid, right? Perivascular fluid, but it's the heart's unique little, tub that it sits in of water, right? Because the heart has to have water moving and circulating. And because the heart and the brain have the highest concentration of mitochondria, that not only means that the heart and the brain have the highest amount of electrical activity, magnetic activity, but they also have the highest amount of water produced in them intrinsically. So because some of the cells in the heart have millions of mitochondria, that means that there are not even millions, there are billions of little mitochondria that's recycling water in the heart. Fresh to keep the heart flexible, right? Not just for the electric activity and the ions, this and that and the other, but so that the heart stays flexible. That's the most important thing, because your heart really, it kind of like it don't pump. You know what I'm saying? Your heart kind of like twist and untwist. It twists and untwists. You know, that's why your heart is at an angle. Yeah, your heart's at an angle. And so it's a whole, yeah, we can get into a whole masonry. I could, you know, there's so many different intersections with actual anatomy and physiology, with, you know, different other things that we could segue off into and get lost, right? But this is where it becomes important to relate. What book is that? The Bioelectricity Application book, the Glymphatic System book. We kind of go over it, right? We talk about how the blood increases in muscle tissue when you exercise, right? And it's not a small increase. It's 50 times, 100 times the amount of blood circulating in muscle tissue when you exercise. That's why you get a pump, right? But remember that blood is mostly water. Blood is mostly water, right? So it's conditioned water, right? Which is called plasma, conditioned water. So that means there's a specific combination of ions, right? There's a specific combination of proteins. You got globins floating around, transporting stuff and all kinds of other stuff in this water, right? Which makes it blood, right? You got a whole bunch of red blood cells, which makes it red, right? But it's just red stuff inside the water, right? Along with the ions and the proteins and the platelets and the other stuff. So water becomes important when you exercise because the muscle is mostly water. The mitochondria is getting active, and the more active the mitochondria get, the more water the mitochondria produce. The more water the mitochondria produce, the more the muscle gets pumped. But that pump is also based on water content. And you also have the volume of blood increases. The volume of blood increases. So when you finish exercising and your pump comes down, you'll pee a few times and the volume of blood will shrink down a little bit. Your volume of blood doesn't stay the same throughout the day, right? Depending on your activity level, you know, how much sugar, salt, a wide variety of things changes your blood volume, right? So you want to try to keep your blood volume, the fluid volume, as high as possible. But in keeping that as high as possible, it has to stay conditioned, right? So it has to have the electrolytes, the vitamins, the glutathione, the melatonin, the this one, the that one, the other one, to make it whatever it's supposed to be, right? Because your body doesn't really use water. It uses conditioned water. Every area in your body has to have a different type of water. So even though plasma is a type of water, the ion ratio in plasma is not the same as the ion ratio maybe in the perivascular bag for the heart. And the water in the perivascular bag for the heart, or pericardium, excuse me, the pericardium bag, you know, for the heart is not the same as, you know, cerebral spinal fluid. And that's not the same as the vitreous fluid in your eye, which is not the same as the water that's inside your bones, which is not the same as the water inside the cells, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So plain water, your body has to condition in order for it to be useful somewhere. Right? Oh, we going crazy. We almost have 1,400. We going crazy. Right. But yeah, so when you exercise, you get to target specific places in your body. You get to target specific places. right? So don't think that you're not targeting your organs. You're very much targeting your organs because your muscles. So you have your muscles, connective tissue, and then past the connective tissue, you have your organs. Right on the other side of the muscles, right on the other side of the fascia, right? Your connective tissue, you have your muscles, and on this side, you got your organs. When you work out right here, you put in pressure. You're pulling and tugging on the fascia. The fascia is made like your bones. All of your body's fascia is piezoelectric. So when you pull or push on it, anytime you put mechanical pressure on the fascia system, you start to produce electrical signals. That's what piezoelectric means. Pressure waves get converted into electricity. That electricity directly translates to the other side, whatever's over there, right? So when you're doing push-ups, you're literally sending, electrical signals to the heart, to the lungs. You're putting pressure even also on the ribs and the spine, right? And the ribs and the spine, at least in this area, like your thoracic vertebrae, are come on now, think of the word. They active bone marrow, right? So that helps you to increase blood, right? That helps you to increase blood, right? So, when you get those signals there, that helps to translate to your body producing more blood, more oxygen. The faster your body brings oxygen in, the faster you could break down lactic acid, the faster you can metabolize carbohydrates, the faster you can metabolize fat. The faster you can metabolize fats, lactic acid, carbohydrates, the longer you can use your muscles without getting tired. That's literally like the biochemistry behind endurance, right? So the other day we were talking about this white guy seen on the internet. My man did 1,000 push-ups. 1,000 push-ups straight. You know what I'm saying? Crazy work. I felt like he was showing off, though. You know what I'm saying? I really felt like he was showing off. Because, when you see the black guys doing calisthenics, like they be doing muscle ups and spinning around on the bar going crazy. I think he just did like a, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to dominate y'all like this. I see all them tricks y'all doing, but yeah, 1,000 pull-ups. When you hit 1,000 pull-ups, holla back. Yo, I was an instant fan. I was like, sub, notifications on. Yeah, keep me in the loop, family. I'm with you. Whatever you doing here, let me know. I need to see this. Yeah, I was a fan immediately. It was amazing to watch 1,000 push-ups happen. But yeah, I think that's why, we try to create the basic stimulation throughout the body of all of the tissues, head to toe, at least 3 to 5 times throughout the day, but then also spread the reminders of drinking water throughout the day, right? Spread the reminders of drinking water throughout the day, right? At least 1 cup every hour. You don't have to try to guzzle a gallon of water down in 2 hours, but just a cup an hour, right? Because your cells, if everything is working right, your cells are going to produce their own water. Your cells are going to produce their own water. You have to worry about getting the water to go through your digestive system, go to the circulatory system, and then move throughout all of the connective tissue. That's the most important thing you got to worry about. And then once it moves through the connective tissue, cycles around to the cells, then it's going to go through the lymphatic system, move through the lymphatic system, move through the brain, cycle back in through the clavicle, back into the circulatory system, and then to the toilet. Okay, we have 1,400. Okay. That's too many people. That's too many people. Stop hitting the repost now. That you done reposted us too many times. Yeah, you done reposted us too many times. Yeah, I don't have nothing to say to all y'all people. This is crazy. Go to bedtime.
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.